She loves Savannah, so.
I was all for it until I had a couple conversations.
Stretch,
Oh, okay.
stretches as much as we can.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And all you have to say is, I told you.
Well, you have bathroom problems, you have security problems,
I'm sure.
crowd control.
You know,
Size of the event that we do is so.
one of the reasons why this is my
Everybody can have fun.
favorite thing I've ever had.
Well, last year we had 3 generations.
I never had this. You guys,
I gotta give you a hard time.
People dancing, I like that too. Yeah, it was very cool.
you guys are a little too.
Yeah.
You start getting-
I welcome any trouble you want to cause. Start wondering what y'all had
We're
running
gonna
out.
have a table, we're gonna have to do that, start getting back to Chris, gotta donate to Van, to George,
That's
and the
exactly
cat.
it. I was talking to
I
their.
had no dollars, I had no dollars.
We were talking about handling a function. So here's what you do. You just do what you think you need and send me an email and have me bless it. That way it's my fault. If it goes in, I said, that's what I'm here for. That's a great idea.
Okay, I think we're all here, and it's 7:30, so Christine, you ready to go?
Looks like some straw.
Rista, you ready? Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm going to call the regular city council meeting of Colleyville to order for January the 7th of 2020 at 7:30. Let me call the row. Councilmember Nakamura.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lindemood.
Here.
Councilmember Wheat.
Here.
Mayor's here. Councilmember Dodson.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Rigney.
Here.
Very good. So we'll open it with invocation. Pastor Mike Dawson from the First United Methodist will give us our opening prayer, and then we'll have the pledge.
Will you pray with me? Loving and gracious God, it's appropriate that we not only begin this meeting with prayer, but that we begin the year with prayer too. We start by thanking you for the blessings of 2019. We thank you for the opportunities this council has had to serve the community in the past year. We thank you for the tasks that were completed and look forward to those which continue to hold our attention in this new year. We pray for your wisdom and your guidance, especially in those areas where there are divisions and where there are no easy solutions. Thank you for the mayor and each member of this council. Thank you for those concerned citizens who cared enough to come out tonight. And while we may not get exactly what we want, may everyone be heard and help us assume the best motives for everyone who speaks and treat one another with respect. All this we ask, understanding that it's your will we seek. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to wish everyone a happy new year. This is the first meeting of year 2020. That's hard to believe when I say it, that we're already at that year. And we don't have flying cars. When I was a kid and reading Popular Mechanics, we're supposed to have flying cars long before now, and we don't.
Don't they exist? They're just not on.
Yeah,
the
they
road.
do.
Uber Air.
Not in Colleyville. Yeah.
That's right. But it's coming.
It's coming.
Right. So I hope everyone had a joyous Christmas and holidays with your families. We did. And so, as I always do, we will have several items on the agenda tonight that has public hearings. You're welcome to speak at any of those. There's cards in the back. If you'd fill out with your name and address, I'd appreciate it. But whether you do or not, we're still going to let you speak if you want to. So I will not close the public hearing without asking if everyone has spoken that would like to speak. So we will. We just came out of executive session, as we always do before this meeting, and we will go to agenda item 2. That is the item if we need to take action from our discussions in executive session, and tonight we do. So we have a resolution. We'll have a reading and public hearing, and then vote. This is resolution R-20-4457. A resolution approving council action regarding executive session items at the regular city council meeting of January 7, 2020. Whereas following discussion in executive session and in full accordance with the requirements of the Open Meetings Act, the city council determines that the following action is in the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Colleyville, Texas, Section 1, that the City Council hereby authorizes and approves an economic development grant incentive agreement with T. Johnny's Cajun Market, Texas, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $33,000 for interior and exterior building, parking lot, and landscaping improvements on the real property located at 5409 Colleyville Boulevard. The city manager or his designee is authorized to execute all documents necessary to effectuate the foregoing economic development incentive agreement, and it is so resolved. Adrian?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Adrienne Lothry, Assistant City Manager. As you mentioned before you all for action this evening is a BEST grant agreement. That's one of the city's economic development incentive opportunities intended to help beautify our commercial properties along the 26 corridor. So T. Johnny's Cajun Market is the item before you all this evening, and they are interested in taking the former Farmers Market building, and I think most folks are familiar with where that's at, but if you're not, it is just south of the Church Street and 26 intersection, and I'll show you a picture of what that looks like. This is the existing building there, and it's been vacant for some time, and we're excited that Mr. Phil Tullis is interested in bringing T. Johnny's Cajun Market to this former Farmers Market building. It's kind of a unique building, unique property, and it's going to, it really took the right user and the right use to come along and make good use of this space, and we're excited about that. And Mr. Tullis plans to make a number of improvements to this property, including facade improvements that would include stone wainscoting, new paint, landscaping where possible. Again, it's a little bit of a tight site, so not a lot of opportunity for that there, but it tends to refresh all of that, update the interior, make it appropriate for the Cajun Market. For those folks that might be interested in shopping there when he comes open, it's actually a takeaway food market that he has proposed for fresh seafood, things like fresh shrimp straight out of the Gulf from Louisiana, crawfish during the season, and those would be items that you could purchase there and take home and enjoy. So not intended to eat there, not a restaurant, but fresh seafood market with a little bit of Cajun style. So we're excited about his proposed use. And so you see before you some examples of the stone material on the screen and some of the paint colors he intends to improve the building with. And all in all, he intends to invest about $103,000 into total property improvements. And so the recommended grant for your consideration this evening is $33,000.
Very good. Council have any questions or comments?
Thank you for investing in Colleyville. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that building get new life.
Yeah, me too. It's been empty for a while.
Great.
Thank you.
As I understand, he will make that investment and then we will reimburse him.
Yes, all of our BEST grants are on a reimbursement basis. That's
Right.
correct. And those are funded with our tax increment financing district dollars.
Understand. That's great.
About how many of those have we done so far?
I think when I did the map last, it was just under 20.
Yeah, it's quite a few.
That when you include the sign grant as well.
Yes, that would include our BEST grant, our sign grant, and our SAFER grant.
Very good.
The best grants is what, below 5?
I'm sorry.
Best grants, how many?
Oh, BEST grants is probably about 12 or 13.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, I'm going to open a public hearing. Public hearing is open. Anyone wish to speak on this item, you're welcome to. I see no one wishing to speak, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Motion is in order.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve Resolution R-20-4457.
I second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Lindamood, a second by Councilmember Dodson. So would you open the vote? The vote's open. May show it when it's ready. Motion's approved, therefore the resolution is approved. Thank you. We'll move to agenda item number 3. This is announcements, proclamations, and presentations. And I think tonight, the only thing we have are announcements. Very unusual. So I'll go first. And my announcement has to do with the next Mayor for a Day. Every year we allow students in grades 2 to 7 turn in a 1 to 2 page paper on what they would do if they were mayor and how they would see the city. And then we select those, and the individual that wins that gets to be mayor. Well, he's actually mayor all year, but one day he or she gets the time to spend a lot of time with the staff and the different departments and do a lot of fun things actually for them. Then after that day's over, they have a pizza party. They can invite friends to that pizza party while we're in executive session. And then that evening, they'll actually preside in the meeting along with me, and typically they'll have a resolution that they propose for all of us to vote on, and they get to actually run the vote and everything on that resolution. So it's a lot of fun. And then throughout the years, we do different things like Christmas tree lighting and others, and I can call the mayor for a day up to help us out whenever they're around. So I really encourage the grade 2 to 7 to apply for that. Everyone that's done it's have a lot of fun. And applications are taken through Friday, the 24th of January. So,
All right, and I have two of them. Candidate packets are available. The city council packets are available Monday, January the 6th, which was yesterday, 2020. The first date to file is January the 15th, and the last day is February the 14th for council members, place 3, Kathy, your spot, and then George Dodson, place 4. So good luck to those who sign up, and hope that we see some familiar faces try to run again. Also, I want to personally thank the citizens in Colleyville, my friends. You guys stepped up. We set out sign-ups to deliver food to the police department and the fire department during not only Thanksgiving but also during Christmas. And as soon as we get that thing out there, the sign up genius, it fills up so fast because everybody's so eager to help. And even if you didn't get on there was a lot of people who still gave to these wonderful first responders. So tip of the hat to you. I just want to say thank you very much. And it didn't go without notice how well that our citizens love our first responders.
So I wanted to talk about the Winter Reading Club, which for the library starts on January 13th. It's for children ages 0 to age of 12, and you can sign up at the youth services or circulation desk, and you receive a punch card and a book bag. The club is going to run for 12 weeks and ends on Saturday, April 11th. When children check out a book once a week for 10 out of the 12 weeks, they receive a cool prize. So I hope you will participate.
Special collections for Christmas trees and leaves will take place this Saturday, January 11th. Residents are asked not to enclose the tree in a plastic sack or bag and to remove all tinsels, stands, and tree decorations. The collections begin at 10 a.m. to allow additional time for residents to rake and bag leaves and place bags at their curb.
Okay, and I have something exciting that's coming up in February. The Fort Worth Symphony Orchestra is coming to Colleyville Heritage High School on Friday, February the 21st. It's a free concert. You just have to come up and get your ticket, oh, yes, we do, that's right. Oh, yeah, we already have the first tickets out there. So please come up and get your tickets. It starts at 7 p.m., and then the main pieces will be the Brahms Violin Concerto, Michael Shin as, she as soloist, and Beethoven Symphony 5. So you just come up to City Hall starting on Wednesday, January 8th, which is tomorrow, and get your tickets. So we hope we see everybody out there.
Okay, and I'm going to report on a commercial occupancy study that was completed over the Christmas break. A local college student volunteered to undertake an occupancy study of our community's commercial real estate. The data collected will be used to create a heat map that can be compared annually to assess changes in occupancy trends, site-specific and across the community. The data collection confirmed our often touted occupancy rates of greater than 90%. In fact, the commercial office occupancy that he found was 96.55%, and the retail occupancy rate was 90.06%. Thank you to all our commercial businesses for participating in that event, and we are so pleased and proud of our commercial businesses and what they mean to Colleyville.
And we really are, because those numbers are really important. I mean, cities strive to get to 90% commercial occupancy rate, and we've kind of tracked this number, and Colleyville fortunately has surpassed that number, that 90% number, all the way through the State Highway 26 construction project. So we tend to look at that and look at sales tax to see what the impact of that has been on Colleyville. And I've always been pleased that the businesses have done well, even though you see some that go and come. It's not been unusual over any other city. So, in fact, I'm surprised that the office rate at over 96% is really high.
It's amazing.
And everybody, mark your calendars. The Colleyville Chamber of Commerce Annual Awards Banquet is Thursday, January 16th at 6 p.m. This event recognizes our business and civic community, and tickets can be acquired from the Chamber office at City Hall.
Great.
Very good. Any other comments? If not, we have no other awards to present to that, so we're going to move on to agenda item number 4, which is consent, reading in public hearing of the consent resolution. This is Resolution R-20-4458, a resolution approving city council action under consent items at the regular city council meeting of January 7th, 2020. Whereas city council has taken action on certain items on the agenda under consent items, now therefore be it resolved by the city council of the city of Colleyville, Texas, Section 1, that the agenda decisions approved by city council action under consent items as follows are hereby adopted. A, approval of the minutes of the regular city council meeting of December 17th, 2019. B, approval of a 3-year municipal and county government enterprise license agreement between the City of Colleyville and the Environmental Systems Research Institute in an amount not to exceed $75,000 and authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement. Chris, were you going to tell us about this?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'll try to make this shorter than your security awareness training.
That's still going on.
This item is a 3-year license agreement between Environmental Systems Research Institute, better known as ESRI. This contract will be the 3rd renewal of a 3-year license agreement, moving us into the 7th year on an enterprise license. The contract is worth $25,000 annually based on the number of citizens in Colleyville. Of course, we utilize a GIS platform for analyzing and managing map data, city parcels, zoning, and city assets. The city has several integration points that work hand in hand with department softwares, updating live as employees are engaged in their platforms. We've been a licensed member of ESRI software since 1996 and have over 100 layers of data, as you can see in the attachment you have there. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Chris, I have a question about what is GIS?
What is GIS?
Yes.
Geographical Information Systems. It's what we use every day in our lives.
No, just in general, what is it?
It's a mapping platform that helps us analyze data as they are stored on the maps.
Okay, well,
Councilmember Dotson?
Yeah.
I can explain it maybe a little bit more,
yeah,
what the average person would want to understand.
Right.
It's a way to provide layers upon layers of data that is based upon aerial photography. So it's got information about lot ownership, tax records, zoning, historic approvals that related to that property, sewer and water lines, even recently street lights, fire hydrant locations, storm inlets. And so there's endless possibilities of the layers of data you can add. And so what it's done is gone from being a technical tool that was traditionally used in planning and zoning and has now become a daily tool that almost everybody in the organization uses, and even the public can have access to and enjoy the benefits of. And so we see it in our everyday lives, we just don't realize. It creates all the maps and all the exhibits that we see, and it's used by other agencies like TAD, who are providing similar type data. And so it's become a daily tool, and I use it every day myself.
Yeah, city manager is one of the power users in the city.
And I want to,
I know that. When I ask questions, he pulls
Yeah.
up.
He's pretty high on
Pulls
this. He
up
can
the
probably
GIS.
teach the employees how to use the platform fairly well.
Wow, must be close to race time or
I'm-
something.
I'm-
In the crowd here.
It absolutely is.
The reason I ask a question, I think a lot of people might not realize at all
Yeah.
what it is and how critical it is. It's a major source of all kinds of information that we need.
Yeah, and what people don't realize is very useful, and people have access to it. The public, I mean, the citizens can log in and look at all that data, and it's very useful.
And we provide data
Yeah.
to our contractors every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
The work that's being done in the city by all the city employees, they tie work orders to assets so we can see historical data on different things that we're working on regularly. It's a very important tool here.
It is, absolutely.
We're very fortunate that they have these licensing packages based upon population.
Yeah.
Because I remember when it first came out, I was an early user, but more of a remedial user. And I was faced with the question of buying a license because of my limited use. And I remember going around City Hall and turning off others so that I could get on the limited licenses we had.
We were there
And we-
7 years ago.
Yeah, and so this package opportunity it allows for this tool to be used across a broad base of individuals who maybe otherwise wouldn't use it. And it's actually very beneficial and helpful to our residents and provides immediate answers. And so it's actually one of the better tools at a reasonable price.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the cost?
It's a great deal.
Yeah. What was the cost at the last contract? Do you remember?
It's the same.
Same, so that's even better.
It's gonna be the same if we can stay under 25,000.
So they don't
since-
change that cost?
That's great.
Just talking over the contract before we
Yeah.
brought it to you guys, we're expecting that we'll go over 25,000.
Yeah, right. What's the next bump up in cost?
It's 30,000 folks,
Well, that's not-
$30,000.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
That's a dollar citizen.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Of course, we can stop the number of people coming in, right? So that's a
Tough
joke.
here.
That's a joke, Chris.
Very tough.
Okay, any other questions for Chris? Nope.
Great.
Thank you, Chris. I'm going to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Have any cards? Have no cards. Anyone wish to speak on this item? See no one indicating that they want to speak. So I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Motion is in order.
I make a motion that we accept Resolution R-20-4458.
Second?
We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Dodson, a second by Councilmember Rigney. Okay, would you open the vote, please? And you may show it when it's ready. That motion is approved, therefore the resolution is approved. We'll now move to agenda item number 5, which is a tabled ordinance. So could somebody make a motion to take this off the table?
I'll move to remove ordinance O-19-2105 from the table.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, I have a motion by Council, Member Kelly to remove it from the table, a second by Council Member Wheat. Do we need to do this manually, or we can do this? It's open. We're right on top of it. It flashed up there. I think it was yes.
It was unanimous.
Pardon?
It was unanimous. Can you go back to it?
Okay, that motion was approved, therefore it's off the table. So this is consideration of a special use permit for an accessory dwelling on tract 3K and 3Y, abstract 211 in the BBB and CRY survey located at 509 West LD Lockett Road, case ZC 19017.
Thank you. Ben Briner, Director of Community Development. This is the second reading for this item, a special use permit request for an accessory dwelling at 509 West LD Lockett Road. This does require a supermajority vote based on the opposition that was received for this case. It did exceed the 20% area trigger. So once we go over 20% opposition based on the 200-foot notification, it does trigger a supermajority vote, which requires 6 affirmative votes for this to pass. Here's an aerial photo of the site. There is an existing house towards LD Lockett, and then there's 2 additional buildings on the south side of the property, the back of the property, a garage, and then a barn. The applicant isn't requesting to convert the barn into a dwelling. The intent is to tear down the existing house and then rebuild. While that is happening, they would like to stay on the property, and so they're hoping to use the barn as their dwelling while they build a new house. Current zoning is R40, single-family residential, and it is designated for residential use, so it does comply with that designation. So this image is 180 degrees flipped, but you can see the structures on the property, and then the barn itself is in that back corner, which I've highlighted with the yellow boundary. So again, they are requesting to improve that structure, expand it a little bit, and use it as their dwelling while they tear down and rebuild for a new house. The new house location will be in approximately the same location as the existing house. And so this is the first part of the Land Development Code where it identifies that an accessory dwelling is only authorized through approval of a special use permit on the R40, in the R40 district. And then these are the regulations associated with accessory buildings and specifically accessory dwellings. I've highlighted the maximum size allowance for accessory dwellings in the red text, which they do comply with those limitations. And this is the site data associated with this request. So it is 73,485 square feet for the total lot area. The maximum lot coverage allowed in this district is 20%, which authorizes 14,697 square feet. And then of that, 4% of the total lot area can be for accessory buildings, and that equals 2,939 square feet. So those are the maximums that they would be authorized. The existing house is 2,326 square feet. Again, they will tear that down and are proposing an approximately 5,000 square foot new home to replace it. The existing garage is 1,417 square feet, and then the accessory dwelling after the expansion will be 1,192 square feet. So those 2 structures, the garage and the proposed dwelling, would equal 2,609 square feet, which is 3.6% of the lot area, so it does fall below that threshold of the 4% maximum as authorized by staff. And so the total square footage is, of all structures is right now just shy of 5,000 square feet, but with the estimation of 5,000 square foot new home, that bumps up to about 7,600 square feet. And as you can see, that is well under the 20% lot coverage requirement as well. So again, it is in the rear corner of the property. Currently, it's 847 square foot for the size of the structure. They're converting it and expanding it, and that total square footage as proposed would be 1,192 square feet. Again, with the maximum size for accessory dwellings, it talks about the different thresholds, and one of those is not greater than 1,200 square feet, so it is in compliance with that. And then this is a more detailed zoning exhibit site plan. So they will have access off of Reagan. This is labeled Drive, Reagan Road. And they would be able to go behind the existing garage to access the proposed dwelling. This is just a closer view. They will have some improvements for access to get to the structure as well, whether it's a sidewalk or whatever they need to meet code. Here's a drawing of the barn. Currently on the right-hand side of this drawing, it is more of a, not necessarily a carport, but it's open and you can put equipment or something underneath. They will be enclosing that and expanding that just a little bit on that side. They are proposing or showing that it will be at least 6 feet from the property line and only 8 feet in height at that location. That does meet our height requirement for accessory structures. It does get taller in the middle with the design you see there, but the maximum height is 17 feet. That still falls underneath our 45-degree angle height limitation, and so they do comply with height for the entire structure. These are just some photos of the existing garage that's closer to Reagan Road. This is a,
Just a minute, Ben.
oh yeah.
Go back.
Mhm.
This, is the building on the right-hand side, or is this the garage?
This is, both of these are the garage.
Oh, okay.
There's two.
Because it shows 9.75 feet.
Right,
so that's-
well,
This is a different
two
site.
structures there.
Two accessory structures, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
This is a proposed floor plan. So again, on that right-hand side, that would be the new enclosed area, which bumps it up to just under 1,200 square feet. And then this was provided showing the future house plans as they've preliminarily submitted for us to look at. We did send our notices out to all properties within 500 feet, as well as HOAs within 1,000 feet. We did receive a number of responses back. One, primarily it was a petition that included 8 signatures, all in opposition. And with that, the opposition does calculate out to about 46%. Once you exceed 20% of that area, then it does trigger the supermajority. There was one opposition that was just outside of the 200-foot notice boundary, or at least the supermajority boundary, that rescinded their opposition, but we received a letter today that they are reinstating their opposition. I believe that was provided to you guys.
But they're outside of this loop.
Right, they're at 609 West LD Lockett, which is at the corner with Lowry. So it does not really affect the calculation on this. Staff does recommend approval. It does meet the requirements as outlined in the Land Development Code. All requests with the R40 district do require a special use permit. The Planning and Zoning Commission also did recommend approval at their November 12th meeting by a vote of 4-0.
Okay.
I can answer any questions. Oh, I forgot to mention, at the last meeting a month ago, there was a conversation, at least a brief discussion about the possibility of including a time limitation on the SUP. And I believe that the applicant was amenable to something, some type of expiration.
Okay.
Ben,
So just,
Ben, go ahead.
you have a question? I just
Yeah.
want to do a note of explanation for everybody listening.
Okay.
Why this is the second reading. It's been a month since we had the first reading, and we, Councilmember Rigney wasn't here. They were in Australia, had a great time, I understand, last meeting, so we chose not to take a vote that required supermajority with any missing council members, so we tabled and deferred to tonight, so we had a full membership. So, George, go ahead. I just want to let everybody know that.
I was gonna, can you tell us something about why this, why some work was started before they actually requested a permit? Because there was quite a bit of discussion that last time.
Yeah.
Could you explain that?
So they had started work on their own without coming to our office to inquire about any permits that would be necessary. We did receive a call that there was work happening on a property, and so the building inspector went out, verified that they were doing work that does require review and issuance of a permit. So a stop work order was placed on the property, and the applicant did come in after that to follow through with the appropriate permitting procedures. As part of that review, based on the zoning and what the intent for the building was, which is an accessory dwelling, we determined that it needed the special use permit approval, and so we immediately initiated that process, and so here we are today. Yes, they did start, but after the stop work order was placed, we believe that they did stop all work in order to go through these approval processes.
Yeah, and then I had one other, it seems to me like the application hasn't been changed So they plan to still use the building for living space after they build the house, is that correct?
Right, so
That's the way it states.
that is the request, although, we had that brief discussion about the possibility of an expiration, and my recollection is that they were amenable to that if the council felt that that was most appropriate.
Right, I have a question. I'm confused as to why everybody's opposed to it since we then put that stipulation in there, the stipulation, because there's not going to be a oven in there, correct? Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
So what was the main reasoning?
Well, so let me just summarize what the issue is. So the application was for accessory dwelling. And so I made this point last time. All the structures that were shown and that are being done, all of those structures in and of themselves fall within all ordinance regulations. And so that's not the question here. Tonight, the only question is, can they use it for an accessory dwelling? And so a number of neighbors objected to that. We heard from last time. In fact, that's why we're having a supermajority vote. So that's really the only question on the table. And I know one of the individuals that took his objection away and brought it back, I think that's the letter you were looking at, and the reason you asked those questions had to do with, one reason was, well, there was this work done before permits were issued, et cetera, which is true. You just explained that. But the decision tonight really is just about, do we give them an accessory dwelling permit or not? I'm not personally in favor of a permanent one, so the question on the table, I think, is, do we add the stipulation of, do we do it with a stipulation of some time frame or not? And that's the question to me. Do you do it at all, or do you do it like that? So,
Mayor,
yeah.
just to add on to that, last time the discussion or opposition from some of the neighbors was concerned about the accessory dwelling unit becoming a rental, which is not allowed by our codes. And the applicant expressed an interest in occupying that structure while they were building their new home. And so from those two comments came the thought, well, if there is a short-term need, maybe one option is a limitation on the time in the special use.
Right, and that's what I remember it being. So I was just concerned, and I'm seeing a lot of people here, so I'm hoping that they're going to get up and speak on this issue so that I can understand. Because with that stipulation added to it, I don't see a problem. I mean, I saw the problem before, but with that, I don't understand why. And I have not heard from any of the people.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping they'll get up and explain that.
Yeah, but there's no stipulation stated in the application or
There's
any
not, but-
discussion. So,
Well, yeah, there was in the discussion.
I'm sorry, there was discussion, but there's nothing documented.
Right.
And so I think that's perhaps why the opposite, we'll find out.
Because, I mean, that's something that's easy enough to be added, correct? Right.
Yes.
Okay, so,
I got a couple of questions.
Sure.
So in the packet, there was somebody that sent some pictures with some measurements. And I'm going to guess they were off of the fence line. And it shows to be 5 feet. And actually, one shows to be 5'1" inches. And I'm just kind of curious where this measurement was taken. And was it from the fence line, or I'm sure that hopefully that person's here tonight. They took quite a few pictures, as a matter of fact, of
yeah.
why they're saying that it shouldn't be up there. But kind of curious why the measurement's like that. I'm going to try to find the person's name.
So in the discussion of people coming up, if that doesn't get touched on, remind me
Peggy.
so we can come back to it and talk about it, because I don't have that picture with me.
Okay.
So.
I had to go back to,
Yeah.
I think it was,
Okay.
I believe it's Peggy, maybe?
It's in one of the opposition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other question before I open the public hearing? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open.
I don't have any cards, Mayor.
Okay, I don't have any cards. If you want to speak, let me know. Raise your hand or so indicate. Sure.
Hi, Doug Finley, 601 LD Lockett and 5604 Reagan Road.
And I did take the pictures.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Thank you.
assumed it's the line. I mean, I stood on my property and looked at the line.
Okay.
That was my concern, is it was so close. But then I think 5 foot is the minimum in the regulations. I'm not sure. I
Yes, sir.
believe. And our concern is, I have a hard time believing that someone's going to provide for 2 children in a 1,100 square foot with no oven and no kitchen. And if that's the case, okay, that's fine. But our big concern also is the potential for down the road it to be a B&B. And even though people can say, well, it's going to be my forever home and it's never going to change, I mean, life happens. You know, people get sick, people get ill, people leave. And if we say, okay, we can have this dwelling, that dwelling's going to be there forever then, right? And the second thing that I'm concerned about is, it started out in his paperwork, it was going to be an accessory building, and down the road it was going to be a guest house. And I don't know if he spoke to someone that said, you don't want to say that, you want to say it's going to be a man cave. So a concern is what is it actually going to be? Is it going to be a party house that's now sitting on my property line, affecting horses that I might have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So those were our concerns, and that's the concerns for the whole neighborhood. It's not just, I understand you want to build your home and live there while you do that. Okay, great. Because one of the things I put in one of my letters is I'd have no problem with that if he would agree to tear it down afterwards. Now you could say, oh my God, we're now going to ask someone to tear down their thing. But he's already planning on doing that with his house, and he's already rehabbed his house to live there in the meantime. So I don't think that would be unacceptable to ask, but I don't know if you guys can actually do that. You know, that would be, destroy your own property.
Yeah, so I have a question. So if, what Councilmember Nakamura was talking about, if the approval for using it as dwelling unit was limited to the time that they were building their home, is that a
I
problem?
feel a lot more comfortable with that, absolutely.
Okay.
And I think that reasonable people would
Yeah,
feel the same way.
okay. Yeah, and the other part, reason I pointed out that all the structures are legal according to current ordinance. In other words, he had the right to build a structure, he just does not have the right to live in it. That, to me, that precludes us trying to create a requirement to tear it down because they're legal structures, so.
Like I said,
Okay.
that's why you'll see in my thing that I would agree to that totally.
Mayor, and to your point, even more to your point, it's also legal for him to renovate it and make it into
Yeah.
a man cave
Yeah,
or,
whatever,
Sure.
you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So makes that comment even more important.
Right. But I think also there's concern by several of our neighbors, one across the street, one of us, is noise. And you
Yeah.
guys can come back to us and say, well, we've got noise ordinances for that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's my responsibility to be calling the police every time I got a neighbor that's being loud. I guess it is.
Yeah.
But that is a big concern of mine because it's one thing to live 400 feet away from me. I didn't move to Colleyville to have somebody living on my property line. I didn't anticipate that was going to happen. Can I stop it? No, but can I object to it? Yes. You know, and that's why we're here.
Okay.
Not to be a butthole neighbor, but to be, hey, anybody I think that would stand there and say, would you want this happening to your house? People say, no, I wouldn't want it to be. So that's how we feel.
Okay,
Questions?
thank you.
You bet.
Anyone else wish to speak?
I want to ask, so the Watsons, let me ask them,
Yeah, let's,
well, he said anybody.
yes, ma'am.
I'll
State your
give you
name and
I
address.
spoke last time, so I'll speak again because I feel like you
Okay.
would like,
Sure.
my name's Tara Tooley, and my family lives at 5613 Reagan Road, and we live right across the street from the metal building. And again, the only reason why my biggest concern was, and I know we've had conversations and with you guys, is noise for me. It's a big deal. We've had conversations in the back. He put a radio in his metal building
Yeah.
that unfortunately, I know he doesn't I know we've had conversations, and I think we're on a good path, but I don't want to hear it in my house, and I should not have to hear it in my house.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that. So my concern is it being right across the street from my house is when you're going to use that as your driveway, there's not enough room. So just long-term noise, traffic control, I've lived here a long time, so it's that to the point where, I mean, I want to move. I don't want to live around someone that is loud or inconsiderate because I feel like I'm a good neighbor. I want them to build their home and raise their kids, their cute little boys. It's nothing against them, but just please have consideration toward us as neighbors that I just don't want to hear you. And that's not a lot, to ask for, but that's my main concern, it turning into Airbnb. If it doesn't, that's great. Man cave would just kill me because I don't want to hear it. And that's my biggest concern. So that's why I objected. They didn't ask why, but that's why. So, and if you wanted to know, it's not,
Thank you.
I guess since we have history with that if this was any normal other situation, I wouldn't even be objecting. But my biggest concern is, I don't want to have to deal with this. And I don't want to call the police every time I hear them in my house, and I shouldn't have to. But the noise ordinance, I understand it's a separate issue, but this will be a noise ordinance if, I'm not saying don't allow them to do it, but put restrictions that, just be mindful of your neighbors whenever you're outside and you have your radio up. We can hear you. I know you don't think we can, but we can. So that's just my biggest concern. Ask my children, they're here. It's just been a really big problem in our family, and it's just, I shouldn't have to live like that. That's all I'm gonna say, and I wish y'all well, but that's just how we feel. Do
Okay,
you have any questions?
No.
Okay.
thank you. Tammy, you were about to ask the question of the, who, or what were, go ahead, you were gonna do.
Let them finish. I was just gonna
Okay,
ask Watson's
sure.
question.
Anyone else wish to speak? So, you're the applicant. Let me finish the public hearing, because we're gonna have a question for you, I think, anyway. Anyone else in the public hearing? I see no one indicating they want to speak outside the applicant. So I'm gonna close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Okay, Tammy, will you want to?
I was gonna ask him a question. so
Yeah,
we'll wait till
okay,
he
would
comes
you
up.
come forward, please?
So I think he wanted to speak, and then I'll ask
Yeah.
him afterwards.
Andrea Watson, 509 West LD Lockett.
Corey Watson, 509 West
Okay.
Lee Lockett.
I guess, do we need to?
Do you want us to address some of that or answer a question? I mean,
Yeah,
Go ahead and say what you're gonna say, and then I'll ask you after.
we moved into the neighborhood, and I had a radio from my last house, and I installed it, right? And we have a little gym in there. We're working out, and the radio was turned too loud. And it was the first time to use the radio, and it was the first time getting to know the neighborhood, and it was too loud. So the neighbor came over and said, "Hey, it's too loud, turn it down." So it was kind of loud, so we shut the door, and then we turned the radio down. We thought the volume was good. We went to the middle of the street, we stood there, and I thought, this is about right. And turns out there was it was too loud. We turned down again, and so now we're at a perfect level that no one can hear it. We addressed that with her on a Saturday. Said that we'll never adjust this again. Just come over and talk to us. And this thing was over. So I don't know why for 2 meetings in a row keeps coming up. It was a situation that's been resolved, but
Yeah.
the noise
thought
has
it was
nothing to do.
resolved
We
on
thought it
a
was
friendly,
resolved. It keeps
neighborly
coming
way.
up. Like it was. It's not a big deal, right? It's over. So I don't. That was a one-time deal right when he moved in because it was just an echoey metal building. We figured it out. So I don't. That's it.
Okay.
It's over.
Yeah.
Like the noise. So I don't think by us putting a man cave or watching a movie is going to upset the neighborhood that much. I don't believe. You know. We shouldn't have to even address that, but
Yeah,
it is
this
what it is.
not
So
a party, gonna be a party house, again.
yeah, I mean, it's,
Um,
last time we were here.
I actually want to address a comment about the questioning whether we can raise 2 kids in this without a kitchen. I think it's a temporary situation. There's DoorDash. We have a crock pot. I got an air fryer for Christmas.
A green egg. Yeah.
We have a grill, a green egg, a microwave. You can do things with all of that for a temporary, short-term solution.
When we
How
My
moved,
kids
long-
aren't gonna go hungry.
Yeah, how long will it take to build your house?
that's a tricky question, right? It's a construction question, but I mean, we built a custom home in 2012 in Old Grove, Whittier Heights. It took us 14 months maybe. They were moving, weather was good, right? So 18 months to 2 years. The guy, I mean, Doug that's speaking, he's taking him over 2 years. So I you know, a couple of years you ought to be able to build a house, you would think, right? So
Yes.
I think less than that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, there were some words that were brought up. They said we remodeled the house. Nobody believes what we're doing. When we moved in that house, you can attest to any neighbor, the one spoke in our favor. Actually, we have a neighbor that spoke in our favor. And there was a turkey living in the house. There was carpet that you would peel it up, and there were footprints under the
Yeah, I
carpet
think
from
it was
people.
the original
It was
carpet. It
disgusting.
was
Like it was a just
gross.
disgusting house we moved in. So there's pictures of it. So to say we remodeled a house is ridiculous. We ripped the carpet out because we're not going to live in a
Yeah,
house.
we're
It was
not gonna put our
disgusting.
kids
So
in that.
we replaced the
We
carpet.
painted it and we put new carpet in.
And my
That is
parents
not
own
a
a,
remodel.
they own a paint company, so they painted it for $5,000. We spent $5,000 on the whole deal.
Yeah.
right? But it looks like we didn't
We
remodel
didn't
anything.
remodel anything.
We
I
didn't
have
have,
a
we
hole
don't
in
have
the
a, we don't have a
kitchen
garbage
still.
disposal, like in the house.
Well, I think here
That's none of their business, you know?
yeah, here's my summary of the situation. As I pointed out, the request is for a dwelling unit. So the question is, do
Right.
you get that or don't get that? Or do you get that with some specific time frame, since you only need it for a specific time frame? Under no circumstances where even if you got it, nobody else could live there. It could never be a B&B. So these are all things we talked about last time. I'm just reiterating them so everybody hears them again. The other part of it, setting aside the dwelling unit request for a moment, because you have the land and the zoning you have the right for these structures, and you have the right to improve those structures, and you have the right to use those structures as you wish outside of it being a dwelling unit.
Correct.
Can't be a dwelling unit. Several of the things that you were just talking about and other things that were brought up, I view those aren't relevant to the decisions that we have to make. They are relevant to the neighborhood and how you guys as a group get along with one another. So it's okay to talk about them because everybody hears them, and then you're aware of them, and hopefully as all of y'all move forward, you deal with them properly. If you don't, the recourse is call the police. Somebody will come out and talk to everybody, and that is the way it works anywhere, not this case, but anywhere in town. So that's kind of my review. So our question is, do we approve it or do we approve it with some specific time frame? And if so, what's the time frame is appropriate or do you feel comfortable with?
Can I say a couple more things
Yes.
before we
Sure.
do that? Because I just want to make clear, I grew up in Grandview, Texas, small town, 30 people graduating class. She grew up in a small town in Oklahoma. The draw of Colleyville, for the farming ranch style small town feel, 20 minutes from Dallas, 20 minutes from Fort Worth, that's a big draw for us, right? I did this book, I've got this book, right? You were
Yeah.
instrumental in that. So some of the excerpts in this book, they're exactly what we look for in Colleyville. So we're involved in Branchford School District and ATA Martial Arts and Tune Up Hair Salon and CSA and all over Colleyville. And maybe nobody cares. My point of that is we're heavily involved in this community. I have a small business here locally where I hire Colleyville people. So it is not our intent to change the characteristics of Colleyville to start renting out a barn. Although what we say and whether they believe it is two different things. So to your point, the question is, can we get a special use permit? So we would like you guys to approve that. I will tell you, between this meeting and the last meeting, we planted 29 30-gallon trees, eastern red cedars, all along the fence line of our property, right? We did it because we're going to do that anyways. That's one of step. We put bubblers on all of them. They're 12 foot tall. They're going to be huge. It's going to be a great sound barrier, right? But it's going to look good. We're going to do it anyway. So while that was being done, we had a neighbor stop and take pictures of the crew that was installing the trees. So I say that because there are neighbors that are very interested in what we're doing on our property. So if we were to get a special use permit, the neighborhood will police itself, because I have neighbors that I can guarantee you the neighbor next to me has a guest house. All right, if I were to see neighbors coming in and out of there, I would also throw a fit to that. But they're very interested in what we're doing. So it's going to police itself for something you can't do anyways in Colleyville. I'm asking on a special use, on the special use permit, although I would like it to be permanent, but I feel that if it would make everyone feel more comfortable on the temporary, if we sell our house, don't make it with the property, make it with us. Okay, so, because that's one of the concerns I heard is what if you sell the property, then somebody else could rent that out. Well, maybe they could, so maybe you make it with us, so if we ever sell the property, it goes away. Make it a temporary permit that says, once we tear our house down, that's when the permit would start. And once we get the certificate of occupancy on the new house, then you would pull that permit. The only concern of that is I've got a mother-in-law from Oklahoma, and on Christmas, the brother-in-law, they come in town, even with a 5,000 square foot home. We're kicking our kids out of their bedroom so they could sleep. It would be nice to have a place she could spend the night. 70-year-old mom could spend the night without the police showing up on Saturday morning. But we can get over that. If that's not something that we can't spend the night in it, a mother-in-law, then make it temporary and we can pull it.
So let's speak to
Being
that.
flexible, that's
So,
what I'm getting at.
I'm gonna ask the city manager, because he does a good job of this. So what are you just talking about is how you have a family coming in for visit, can somebody spend the night out there?
Yes.
Yes.
My opinion on this is that the difference between a dwelling unit and just an accessory structure has to do with the permanent occupancy. So if it's a dwelling unit, in my estimation, that means you reside there. Your address is there, your driver's license is there, you sleep there on a nightly basis, it is your primary residence. So if you have an accessory structure right now today that is not a dwelling unit, you have a pool house, it's not uncommon to have situations where the kids may go out and have a sleepover out there, just like they would have a tent in the backyard.
Right.
The tent in the backyard is not a dwelling unit. So the accessory structure is not a dwelling unit. That use is a unique situation. It is not the common application. And so it's that differentiation that we make. Traditionally, you heard the conversation about the oven, the stove in the oven. That was traditionally the way you would distinguish on a set of plans whether somebody was going to use it as a dwelling unit or not. Because traditionally, you may have pool houses that have kitchenette areas and indoor-outdoor areas where you can prepare food. You have a bathroom. You may even have a couch and a TV. But where you tried to draw the distinction of when it became a dwelling unit, traditionally, they tried a simple application of saying it's a stove or oven. That application has long gone away, just like before at the bathrooms and before that, plumbing and everything else. And so it's that distinction that I think would not preclude a visitor from staying out there any more than the kids might stay out there on an activity night. But the residing there is the issue.
Well, that makes sense, and we would be all about a temporary. I'm just hesitant to say that a construction timeframe, I would feel more comfortable if you only give us the permit, let us complete the project, but only give us the permit when our house is torn down. So, and then take it away immediately once we get the green light to move in the house. That would be better.
Mayor, just one more point, and
Yes.
I apologize,
I'm
one more
sorry.
point, but no, I didn't mention the other part of that, which is equally important. There is no provision that allows for rental,
Right.
Correct.
regardless of whether it's a dwelling unit authorized by special use as an accessory dwelling unit or not. And so the idea that you could have Airbnb or the idea that you could rent it out on a monthly, daily, or other basis is something that is not allowed. And so even if a special use was granted, that would not be allowed.
Understood. We're aware of that.
Yeah. And we're saying this for everybody in town's
This is more
benefit,
general
because
purpose,
there's, everyone doesn't understand, they don't deal with it every day like we do, and so it is a difficult issue to understand, and we've changed the rules, like he just said. We went to dwelling unit, like the stove idea doesn't work anymore. So we're trying to get that communicated out the whole community, because people do really worry about that happening, because there are real live examples of Airbnb and places being written out, and that's an issue we have to deal with. So, we don't want that to happen. Interesting in this case, it just dawned on me, you're gonna tear your house down. When he tears that house down, there's not a dwelling unit there. He could have a dwelling unit in that barn until, right?
Well, actually, if we, and it's just to think, hypothetically, if you granted him a special use permit, making that building a dwelling unit
Yeah,
permanently, he then could argue that that's his primary dwelling,
yeah,
but then we would have to look at it as a change
yeah.
in its use.
Well, you don't mistake, so my personal opinion, I'm one vote. I will not approve a dwelling unit permanently, period. That's not gonna happen with me. So I was just making kind of a theoretical comment that you tear your house down, there's only one dwelling unit there now. Or you could say that
Well-
was your primary. Now, if the other one got built, it couldn't be anymore.
Right, and I would argue that it's not a primary dwelling unit, it's still an accessory, even with the primary house gone.
Okay.
And so what would happen is, that's why it's more important than ever that you have that timeline, because then what would happen is, they would have to apply to the city to acknowledge that as a primary dwelling unit, and then it would be subject to normal inspections that would
Yep.
require that. If it then
Okay.
passed all those, yes, it could then
Okay.
be the primary
So
structure.
I just wanted that discussion, because that's the only other possible option I could dream up, so that's not a good one either. So my only, so I'm willing to entertain personally for my one vote, this idea of some limited. I don't know if I'm completely comfortable with just saying, oh, when it's tore down and then when you get a new permit. I mean, you could take 5 years, which is unreasonable.
Oh, I gotta get a permit.
Huh?
Um,
But I mean, but that's true. I mean,
Right.
so you could build it,
Yeah.
and so I don't feel comfortable with saying an unspecified time frame of just based on permit tear down, permit to occupy, because it could be, make up a number, it could be
Right,
anything.
no, we understand that.
Right.
Would
Yeah.
it be, our goal would be 18 months to 2 years.
Okay.
If unforeseen circumstances,
Yeah.
weather or whatever, shortage in lumber, I don't know. I mean, issues come up, could we?
I couldn't, so again, my personal opinion, I could not envision anything, I mean, 18 months is a long time to build a house. I can't envision anything that would preclude you doing it in that month, unless it was something you chose to do differently, understand?
Yeah, I mean, we interviewed 4 builders,
Yeah.
the $350 a foot, not including the land. I mean, I think that some of the prices were high. They said it takes longer because it's Mediterranean, and so, I mean, these are numbers coming from the builder. So, we haven't selected a builder, so
Yeah.
we're not there yet, so we have
Yeah.
it's a little bit of time, so it's not, our original intent was 2 years. We're right at the 2-year mark to build the house, so,
Like live in this
to live in this house that we're in now.
Yeah.
and start building in 2 years, yeah.
And start building in 2 years. Well, right now, we're at 2 years, so we said, well, what a great idea.
Well, I don't mind having the tear down as a start point, but I'm uncomfortable with being the permit to occupy at the
Oh,
other
that's
end.
fine.
It needs to
Yeah.
be a specified,
If we,
specific.
if we don't get it built in 18 months, I mean,
Yeah,
we're gonna run out of money.
I'm sitting here
Yeah.
thinking, you gotta.
We're gonna be
move
moving. Let's move, let's
a whole
move.
other
I
issue.
mean, I'm paying that note right when it's kicked, so we're gonna be,
Yeah.
there's no incentive to drag out a building process.
But just to
Yeah.
clarify,
Yeah.
if you have a special use permit that basically gives you a conditional occupancy, and that special use permit expires, and it expires, and for whatever reason you haven't started or finished, or you've decided to stop and not finish the new construction, you have a situation where at some point, the city then is faced with a question of pursuing a civil action to remove you. And so, that's why this conversation is so important, that you understand that the timeline is crucial. And certainly, it's reasonable if you're 2 weeks from occupancy, you're gonna go 2 weeks over. I don't think anyone's gonna make a big deal of it. But if you get, tear the original structure down, and you get 16 months into this, and you haven't started, and the 18-month timeline is coming along, you should not be surprised that
Oh, yeah.
there's a potential for an action there.
Yeah, we're okay with that.
Okay.
Once the house is gone and it's time to go, so start the clock, we're good with that.
I have a question here.
Okay.
You alluded to the fact that when selling the house, are you guys planning on staying in, not that it's, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I'm just curious. I was under the impression that you're gonna build it and stay. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
we are. It was just that people were throwing out the what-ifs of, life happens, you get sick, or you lose your job, or you have to sell your house. We don't,
They were alluding that we're not gonna build the house, that we remodeled this 1976
staying
home,
over
and
there.
We're gonna live in that home, though they haven't seen the inside of the home, like, that, it's clearly not.
Well,
We
the
don't plan on-
the question that I have, okay, that you had stated when selling the house, whenever that is, whether it's a year from now or 20 years from now, were you asking if that was going to stay on there, that,
There was a complaint, one of the neighbors had a complaint that it's great that it's your forever home and you're gonna live there 20 years, but what happens if you sell in
Right.
20 years?
well, that's my point. Were you questioning whether or not that should stay on that when you sell the
I
house?
think he was throwing out alternatives, like if the council doesn't want to approve a permanent dwelling, then possibly a temporary, like we've been discussing, or maybe it just stays with us and not the property.
So,
Like,
So that's why I made the
So if we
statement I
sell
did
it.
about me. I wouldn't go along with that. I would just
wouldn't,
say,
yeah, no, we were just throwing out
Yeah.
options. We're trying to sell.
I don't want it to be moved to the next owner, is my
right,
point.
right,
Would
me,
it-
me.
Would not.
Right.
Yeah,
That's what we were saying.
Right.
don't
that-
move it to the next owner.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
what
And
we're
that's
saying.
what I thought you were saying, that
Um,
you
It was
wanted
another
to.
option. We were letting you know we're flexible with this whole deal.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just confused on that, so I
Yeah.
wanted to get
Sorry,
it.
yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I just want to take a little different angle at it. First, I want to say thanks to Doug and Peggy, Tara, Mark, David, Angela, Scott, Diana, David, Lawrence, Laura, Doris. Thank you for your letters. We took them and we read them. Just wanted you to know that we pay attention to everything. We don't want you to think that we're just pushing you off to the side. But when you guys elected us, you elected us to do things right by the code. And when the code was brought to us with this project, I'm speaking for me only, it fits inside that code. And just like the mayor's saying, I can't go along with a long-term SUP after they leave. Once it's done, it's done. So, I think they've been proactive with their barriers. I like that you guys have already planted your trees, and you're sensitive to the noise levels. And honestly, if they're loud, you got to call us and tell us. It just they're going to finish out their trees hopefully on the other side or wherever they're going to be at. And but if they don't adhere to the code, then they themselves are in violation. And you guys are responsible to call and let us know that's going on. And if they continue to do it, then their fines will be levied on them. I didn't hear what she say.
She wants to make a comment.
Oh,
Okay.
but
You need to come to the microphone to do it.
But I just want to say that I looked at this through the whole thing from the top to the bottom, from you guys to these guys, read every piece of it, and on my personal part, as long as it's fitted by the code, and they agree to a special SUP on whenever they sell the house that it's going, it makes me feel a little more at ease. I know it may not make you feel it, but I did read, and I wanted you to know that I took your position at heart. So.
Okay, ma'am, did you want to make a comment? Please come to this microphone, yeah.
I just want to respond. It wasn't just one time. with
Yeah,
the noise level.
state your name and address again.
5613
Okay.
Reagan Road, Terratulli. So, and it's nothing against you guys, but it wasn't just one time that you did the noise. No, it was 3, and I had to call the police the 4th time. My
Okay.
daughters are right there, and their room unfortunately is right in front of that. So that's why it's a big thing for me. The second thing is, as neighbors, we would like to see if he did do this. I'm more concerned the fact that you haven't picked a builder. There isn't a start date. So that's more concerning, that how long are you gonna really live there? And I understand what you're saying is if you give him a timeline, if he's not even near done, it's toward them. But that's one thing that we have a concern about. If he already has a builder, his plans are completed, ready to go, then maybe it won't be. But those are the two things we want. I just want to respond back to that to make sure they understand that that's the truth that I have, so.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Okay.
So here's what I'm hearing, and what I would support is approval for the SUP to start when the current house is torn down, not before, and to end 18 months after that point, whether they have a new house built or not. Is that okay with you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Fair.
all right,
That's only our concern,
okay,
so.
very good.
Just clarification, Mayor?
Yeah.
And so there may be a permit issued for the renovation, which could have happened anyway.
Yeah.
But the occupancy is
Right,
triggered
it's,
by that.
right,
So
Right.
explain that, why I'm saying that is, you may see construction on that accessory building before their tear down,
right,
but they cannot occupy it until the tear down.
right,
Okay.
right.
Because they could have done that anyway.
Anyway,
They
yeah.
don't need permission for
Sure.
that, other than a
And
permit.
we're not trying to be like unreasonable neighbors, and I know that you don't understand that, but when you've lived in my house and you've had to deal with this, it's very frustrating for our family. I know, but I felt like, especially since after I did the letter, ask my family. It's frustrating. I love living here. You talk about the country feel. I've lived here almost 20 years, okay?
We appreciate you
Okay.
guys
I'm just-
negotiating it out.
I'm not trying to be, but it's
Oh.
just like, it's a thing, and it's frustrating to me that I live here and I pay taxes for 20 years, and I'm dealing with this. This is ridiculous.
And we hear you, and thank you for negotiating and
Yeah.
listening to what the mayor had to say. So it sounds like we're
It's-
meeting in the middle now, and everybody.
It's so hostile. It's so uncomfortable to live where we live now, and it's just
Yeah.
such a weird.
So let me
Hopefully
propose
we'll
this
do
to
it.
everybody. Here's what I've heard from everybody. So I've heard from you, which I love. I moved here because of what it says in that book about, hey, I like the ruralness and the openness and protecting the integrity of the neighborhood. And what I hear you say is, hey, I'm in a neighborhood, been here 20 years, and I would like the integrity to be maintained. So I hear the same objective. I think it's just a matter of you guys working out, and I understand these things get emotional, but it does take some conversation and willingness to talk and listen and react differently. So I'm an optimist. I trust that's gonna happen as we all go forward.
Mayor, I
Yes.
do have one additional concern in this.
Okay.
Being that they can be issued the permit to start working on the building.
Yeah.
I'm really a little bit uncomfortable with leaving it somewhat open when the tear down starts. I'd like to see some sort of,
Well, I would only say that this is irrelevant. They can ask for a permit tomorrow,
I-
and
what I'm
that's
saying
within the
is-
ordinance.
I'm concerned about leaving the open-ended piece of when they start the demolition of their structure.
Why?
Why?
Worried about the window staying open for 10 years, is that it?
That's exactly it.
So in fact, that the window stays open forever? In other words,
The window doesn't start until they demo the existing facility. So
Yeah.
But is
I'm
that
concerned
something the
about
city
that.
can impose on him?
Well, let me.
I don't know that that's something that we can
Well,
impose.
no, so really what Councilman is saying is the start time is the problem with him. He'd rather have a specific start time, a specific time frame. If I'm hearing you right.
I'm good with 6 months from now, max.
Well, so obviously that raises the question, when are you gonna start your house tear down?
That's like telling
You know,
somebody that,
I
go get financing and go find a builder and you have to do it now.
No, I was gonna say, I hear what Councilmember Kelly's saying, but I was gonna say maybe 5 years. I know it's a very different from 6 months, but that's a very specific window. I assume
will
you're gonna
be
start well
sooner than
before
5
that, but
years.
that
Sooner than 5
expires in a
years.
short
Months
period
is
of
like-
time.
I mean, I've been waiting on the market to
6
turn,
months
to
is
be honest with you,
that'd be tight.
before we turn.
Well,
Six months would be
my
fine.
concern is that
Okay.
if you start now and you start working on that,
Right.
and a year from now, you finally start demolishing, that means that we're looking at 2.5 years before you complete, which I believe is a bit onerous on the.
Okay, I got you, I hear you. So here's what I hear in that. There needs to be a timeframe, a limit on how long you have to start your house. I'm gonna ask you in a minute what that limit is, because you make a guess. Then it goes for 18 minutes, and that tells me that we need to add one more restriction, that restriction being, you sell the property, this goes away no matter where it's at.
Done.
It goes away. Okay, so with Councilmember Kelly's suggestion about not starting it, or not giving you an infinite time to start or do the tear down, what's a rational time to do that?
I'll make a guess at it. If interest rates go to 8%, we go to war with Iran or something. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna start building a house. We're gonna wait. So
Okay.
that's a tricky question.
Well, that's okay. I
3
mean, if that
years
happened to you.
Under 3 years? I mean, it was 2 years
Completion or 3 years to start?
to complete it.
So-
I mean,
He's saying 18.
No, well, okay, if it's three,
Yeah.
I'm saying, from today, when do you expect to have your house torn down and start your new one?
Say, when would you start
Oh.
construction?
well, step one was, I'm talking through, step one is to
Yeah.
complete the barn to find a place to live, right?
Yeah,
So we don't have
okay.
to move out. That would be
Right.
step one.
Right,
We've done so much work on the property.
right,
We'd have to pick a builder, interview another builder.
okay.
I mean,
Get the financing lined up again.
that's a hard.
I mean, I
answer
don't
right
wanna.
If
I
you
don't
can
wanna
make a
tell you.
better guess than I can, and I will if I have to. I said, you can make a better guess than me, and I
Yeah.
will if I have to,
Two,
so.
say
two-
2 years.
2
when we
years,
start.
okay.
I mean, say 2 years to be
Okay.
fair.
Start?
I think that's fair
It's-
because.
I think it's more than, they're being very fair. We don't have requirements on anybody else doing building on their own property, another situation.
No, this is not for building.
isn't-
If they can build
This
to.
is the building on the accessory units that he.
No,
doesn't want to build
no,
on.
it's not.
They're
No, he
talking
can
about-
build accessory unit tomorrow.
They can do that.
There's no restriction on that.
I'm confused.
So, so let me clarify. Now, let me clarify. What we're talking about, all this discussion we just had, only has to do with the approval timeframe of the dwelling, special use permit for dwelling.
I was
If
clear
it's
on
fine.
that, but the part that
You know,
Councilmember
that's,
Kelly brought
no,
up,
that's
I'm
still,
confused
no,
about. Yeah.
no. So
Y'all
unless I'm
keep going back to
mistaken,
when
he's
they're gonna
still
start
talking
demoing.
about when does he was uncomfortable with the start timeframe of the special use permit being only a tear down, because he said, hey, he could not decide not to build a house for 10 years. And then he was uncomfortable with having that big of a window for the start point of that approval, if I understood you right.
That is correct.
Had nothing to do with the accessory building construction. They can do that
Yeah,
tomorrow.
I have no problem with that. I just have a concern with,
But the special use wouldn't start. It wouldn't
That's
even
right.
start.
No,
Yeah,
but,
What,
in our-
what's the risk? There's no
Yeah,
risk.
And why,
Yeah.
and we could have the accessory building completed
Yeah.
regardless of the special use permit.
correct. But let's make sure
But-
Councilmember Wheat, let's, wait a minute. Before we go on, I need to know that Councilmember Wheat has got her question answered, or you,
I think we're,
I think I'm fine.
let her answer it.
I think I'm fine. I think I'm clear with where we were.
Okay.
And I think it'll just have to be in the way the ordinance is, the motion is made, that,
Oh, yeah, no, all these,
That is
reason I
where I
outline
think
these
we're right
stipulations, there'll have to be amendments to the current ordinance. Right.
I just want to make sure that we're not forcing them
Exactly.
to tear their house down at an inconvenient time. That, they dwell in that house from now till the Lord comes back. That's their
Exactly.
business, because that's their personal property.
Yeah.
The SUP doesn't start until that house is demoed. I don't think we should be putting any timeline on the demo of the house.
Well, I would throw a counter out, and that is, they could choose to wait 10 years or 5 years or
Okay.
whatever, it's their right.
Sure.
But if they did, I could say, well, come back and ask us then.
and that's
Yes.
fair.
That's
Because
fine.
they're here representing, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're representing, we plan to tear the house down and build a new one, within some reasonable timeframe.
Right.
Well,
That's what you're
and-
representing.
And to their point,
Yeah,
I mean, 4 months, it takes almost 6 months to draw up plans.
Yeah.
You got 4 months to putting
Yeah.
a builder together, 3 months to get your financing. I'm going through this myself at another
Yeah.
property.
Yeah.
So to tie them down to less than, I'd say 2.5 years from now to the demo would be pretty tight, to be
okay,
honest with
so
you.
you're good with 2.5 years? You're the guy that brought this up.
I think that's a little bit
I don't know.
too open to me, but
2 years starting or finishing?
that's,
2 years to
Starting.
start the demo.
Yeah.
Before they start tearing down.
Yeah.
so, I mean, that leaves it basically almost 4 years.
So,
Somebody explain
Whoa, wait a minute.
If we're
it-
2.5 years,
it-
then another 18 months beyond that,
Okay.
we're looking
To
at
build.
almost 4 years.
To get a house built and moved into.
Yeah,
That's
seems-
correct.
That seems a bit much to me.
Well, but,
Well, if they don't even have
but,
plans.
but wait a minute, what does it hurt? What does it hurt?
I'm just trying to be concerned with the neighbors that have obvious concerns with,
No,
and I'll be honest, in reading some of the stuff that we
Yeah.
got, things started before, obviously,
yeah.
permits were pulled. I have that concern, honestly. I don't see the process being respected to begin with, so I want
Oh.
to put in some guide rails around that to make sure that everybody is getting their piece.
Okay, but let me,
Neighbors as well as,
yeah, let me comment on that, because I haven't commented on that yet. And I started to, but I completely, that's, those complaints that were legitimate, I'm gonna just say this straight out, have no bearing on this decision. Because that would, irregardless of their request for a dwelling SUP, those things could have happened. And so it's a slippery slope to
That-
try to put
I'm not-
limitations on things they have the right to do.
so, but what I'm uncomfortable with is
Yeah.
an almost 5-year time range here.
Okay,
And I just that to me feels like it's a
Yeah.
little bit more than I'm comfortable with.
yeah, but when we say that, to Bobby's point, I'm a little concerned on the other side that now we're putting a stipulation on, they have to have a house built within a certain time frame. And the real question is not the house, the question is the time frame of the special use right.
That's the whole deal.
And that's the issue, not do they build a house or not, right? And that it's been devised so that if they don't build a house, special use goes away. They're gone.
Well, technically it doesn't because they've never started the house.
No, it does.
Are you-
Because here's the stipulation I stated. Stipulation is, in fact, as you wanted, the special use permit approval, basically, I'll say it like that, would be started at whenever they tear the house down, or in some time frame that we specify. Then it starts, okay, the special use starts, and it lasts 18 months. And no matter what happens with the house, it goes away. I mean, it goes away when the house is built and they move into it via a permit to move in, or they do nothing and it goes away regardless.
Right.
So it's an 18-month time frame for the special use right to be in place. Or if they sell the property, it goes away right then. If it happens within, does that make sense? Does that satisfy all your constraints?
Yeah, if you say, if it doesn't start in 30 months, it expires.
It's right.
It goes away.
Goes away.
You're talking about demolition,
I have some wording if you want to try to.
which is,
Okay.
Just
So
the-
Jerry, city manager has some wording. Let's see
Just
what it
as
says.
as an addition to the ordinance, where the ordinance currently provides for item number, section 4, 1, general, under A, it says the special use permit shall apply to the renovation of an existing barn converted to an accessory dwelling, and then it continues, so that's what's there now, and then it would continue to say, oop, not that one, sorry. Not that one. Sorry, I had it written on a different piece, and I don't know where it's at, let's see. So then it goes on to say, conditioned upon tear down of existing primary structure within 2 years of this ordinance passage and occupancy of accessory structure as dwelling unit as part of special use permit no more than 18 months thereafter, after which time the special use permit shall expire. And then next sentence, in no way shall the special use condition continue beyond 44 months of the date of the passage of this ordinance. So that's the absolute.
That's the absolute, yeah, that's correct.
Or upon sale of the house. But it would go away upon sale of the house if.
Oh, yeah, we need to add that if they sell the property, it goes away also. So that's another condition, but I think that meets all the things you said, Chuck.
I have a couple questions
that make
about the
sense?
dwelling unit. if that's-
Follow the concern on where we could, when we.
Who's talking? Did
I
you
have
ever?
a question about the dwelling unit that, I don't know if it's been asked or if it was
Okay,
asked when I
go
wasn't
ahead.
here, but are y'all pouring concrete? Are there going to be any changes in drainage with the surrounding lots? Or do y'all know, or?
Yeah, so there was some work done prior. We addressed that at the last meeting. It's still fully exposed. There's an inspector that can come right now and view everything. Okay, so we took some precautions for drainage. There's a natural slope that goes from west to east. We put some small retaining wall in to
Okay,
make sure that there's no water.
so there will be no problems or additional?
No,
issues
but
with
it's
that?
all exposed anyways for the drainage plan and for the inspection, and
Okay.
it's all there today.
Okay. You were making a comment?
Yeah, I just,
Would you talk in the mic so we
Right.
can hear?
could you explain the concern about how long it'll take for us to start demo? Because if we have the accessory building, we have the right to have that and improve it, correct?
Correct.
So I guess if the concern is that we wouldn't ever tear down the house and.
Yes. Yeah,
So, but we would have the right to have that building, so if.
yeah, you would always have the right to have the building. You would not have the right to use it as a dwelling unit.
Right.
As defined by the city
Right.
manager.
And if we never tore the house down, then we wouldn't need to do that. So that's just
Right.
where I'm confused about
Correct.
where the concern lies, or where the issue would be as to how long it would take for us to tear.
Well, let me give you one that I'm surmising from what Councilman Kelly may be thinking, but if it was in that state, now we've approved something, that there is a right for a special use permit based on a action that was never taken or taken many years down the road. That's why I said it has to also be conditioned on you selling the property, because if that wasn't there, that right would go with the property
Right,
to the
yes.
next person,
Yeah.
and nobody has that intent.
Right. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
I guess it's just like, in my mind, there isn't a permit in place
Mm-hmm.
until we tear the house down.
Yeah.
So the concern about how long it'll take.
Yeah. The only other thing I could think of, and Chuck can say his mind if I miss this, is if it goes too long, like if it goes beyond some, quote, reasonable time frame, then you have to say, or we're sitting up here making this decision, and we would say, well, why? What's changed? And if something changed in your mind or your intent that may have affected this, we really want to know that.
Yeah.
So we want you to, if that happened, let's say you got this approved, you had a 18-month time frame to have the permit and you didn't do it, you would be required to come back and talk to us again. Doesn't mean you couldn't do it, but you'd have to come and we'd have to have this discussion over again, because it meant something changed on your end, and you could explain what it was and make the same arguments you're making today and probably get the same result. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that's.
I mean, it's really interesting when you're doing ordinances, which are laws. It's very tough to do them so well that you avoid all unintended consequences. So I'm thinking all the time about what's all the options and possibilities, not the ones that stated, but the things that could happen to try to avoid things that would be negative. And I think that's why Councilmember Kelly brought that up.
Yeah, I just don't want to see it sit out there in limbo for 5 years, and then you start at that point. As the mayor said, I'd like to know why that happened. Because
Right.
you're here with an intent to move forward, to demo your current house and do this process. So if that takes you 3 years.
Chuck,
I'd
I'll
like
invite you over to dinner and you can see the inside of this house.
I-
And it will let you know, as the foundation cracks are about that big, that we're not gonna be there 3
Well,
years.
and
We can
I'll
only
be honest.
open our
I
front door
understand
6
that.
months
I'm
into
Yeah,
the
only
year.
6 months we can open our front door, so.
This is something that I would ask of anyone, that this is, you're asking for an exception for a time frame.
Understood.
I just don't want that time frame to start 6 years from now.
Understood.
And I think we
Can we-
always try to zoom into something that meets your needs as a requester and meets the needs of the
Right.
neighbor. And I think the things we ended up with kind of cover everybody, concerns and risks. Does that make sense?
I agree.
Mayor, could we put in there that after 36 months, that the SUP is nullified and void?
We've got 44.
Oh, you got
Or, yeah,
44,
yeah,
okay,
it's-
44
it-
months,
yeah.
and then they'd have to come back and ask for it, it's
No,
gone.
it's built in. It's
Okay.
built into his work.
That way we can cut that
Yeah.
confusion completely.
So let me,
Good.
so he had good wording.
It's better now.
You want to read it again?
Yes.
Okay, so everybody listen carefully.
I just said, conditioned upon tear down of existing primary structure within 2 years of this ordinance passage and occupancy of accessory structure as dwelling unit as part of special use permit no more than 18 months thereafter, after which time the special use permit shall expire. And then I had another line that said, next paragraph, the special use hereby granted shall expire upon sale or transfer of property or 44 months from the date of this ordinance, regardless of conditions enumerated above.
Why is it 44 months?
Because that's the 24 plus the 18.
18 and 24.
18 and
Well, that's
24 are
Oh.
42.
Oh,
Yes.
But you know, 44, 42.
whatever.
Whatever.
I thought you were rounding.
He's a
up.
number.
I was, how about 43? No,
Oh.
42, sorry.
Meet in the middle again.
Thanks, George.
You're
Okay.
very welcome. Yeah.
Okay. Does everybody understand the wording and what we're trying to do? You guys understand it?
Yes,
Thank you
You
for
guys
your time.
understand it?
yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've had the public hearing. We've had all the discussion, I think. We're ready to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance O-19-2105, including the amended statements that the city manager read into the record.
And I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve with amendments that the city manager stated by Councilmember Wheat, a second by Councilmember Nakamura.
And could you explain the supermajority real fast?
Supermajority. In order, thank you for bringing that up. So this requires a supermajority vote. If more than one person votes negative, it fails. How's that? Or if 6 people vote positive, it passes. So only one person can vote against it, and it survives. That makes everybody agree? Okay, ready to vote? Vote's open. Okay, passes unanimously, so the ordinance is approved, and that's done. Thank you very much. Now, we talked about that long enough. I need a 5-minute recess, sorry.
From Mac.
Hey, Whit, I sent you that language that I kind of